Today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast, man, we got a lot to catch up on because we've been gone for a little while. But don't worry, we got you covered. So we're going to talk about NASA and their cool little pictures. We're going to talk about some moving pictures that are not so great, including a whole bunch of really bad Thor fans and Friends creators making a lot of dumb comments. We're going to do some international news. Sri Lanka is a kind of a mess, and so is the Dutch uprising, but we got to cover that. Into American news, Elon Musk. Many people think that he's getting owned by Twitter, but I think otherwise. But Elon Musk is also owning Mr. Biden, and, you know, to be fair, Biden's entire family is a cell phone, and we're going to cover all those stories. And moving into Canadian stories, we're going to talk about how Canada is moving in the wrong direction. Surprise, surprise. Who knew? But Justin Trudeau is just continues to be a smug, arrogant douchebag in every sense of the word. We'll cover some stories on that. And we're going to finish up with some stories on a new development in health news that... what could be causing this thing, I wonder. You're going to want to find out what our take is on this thing. We're going to cover it, all those stories and so much more on the Shrewd Dudes podcast.
You missed a key opportunity there.
What opportunity? What did I miss?
You were talking about Trudeau being a smug, arrogant douchebag, and of course we all know that has the acronym of SAD, and the mysterious disease is SAD.
I missed it. What was I thinking?
Admonish.
It was right there. It was
right there.
It was gift wrap. What was I thinking?
I know. Sometimes you get a gift, and then you threw a gift horse back. You threw it back in the gift horse's mouth.
That's true. I will say that.
Yeah.
Stephen, how are you, man? Been
hot.
Been a while since we've done another news day, hey?
Well, it's been a week.
A week. Oh, that's right.
It's been 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since we've done a regular Thursday show.
That's true.
But it's only been 1 week since we've done a regular Tuesday show.
That's right. We got a lot to cover, apparently.
We do, because you miss a lot when you're not doing regular shows. You're doing specials, and we loved doing the specials, and we will continue to do more.
Yeah. If you haven't checked out the interview that we did last week with JoJo and Robin, that was probably one of my favorite ones.
Yep.
On the abortion topics that we did. It was really well done. Yeah,
one of my favorite specials that we did, probably since we did the special with Pastor Tim and Pastor Aaron.
That's right. It was just like it was great conversation.
Truly fantastic. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But what we got today, Stephen? You got some shout outs to make, eh?
Yes, we do. Yes.
We do. Tell me what you got.
On Facebook, I made a promise. Because one of our beloved icons here in Canada, no, not somebody who's a politician.
Laura.
But one of our beloved icons of the pro-life movement here in Canada is Laura Clausen. And Laura Clausen has been having difficulty finding billboards and other forms of advertisement for her company, which is called Choice for Two. And so we're going to provide a quick advertisement for them.
Let's do it.
Because we love their organization. We're not being paid to do this, but this is just something we felt like we wanted to do. She has a wonderful group that she has doing what she does. So
she does very wonderful stuff.
So Choice for Two is for those who are seeking help. If they are pregnant, if they are a young mother, if they are a young family in need, if they are wondering about the reality of abortion, if they've had abortion and feel regret and need counseling or guidance, all of these things are what Choice for Two provides. There's a quick video that we're just going to show a quick 10-second clip from, and you can watch the rest. We'll have the link to the website in our description.
Amen. Yeah.
And you can find out what this wonderful group is all about.
So you're pregnant. You didn't plan this. You didn't want it. And now you have a choice to make. Take a breath. You can do this. I'm going to be real with you, though. The choices that our society and the media are going to present you with, they're not all equal. Right now, your baby's heart is already beating. That started about 21 days after conception.
So.
Oh, it's like a purge almost. Like
I know, but that's essentially how it feels in terms of modern society and the push for choosing abortion. So,
well, that's the one thing that I brought up in a lot of our conversations is that they always say that abortion is the compassionate choice, but in reality, most women or a ton of women are pressured into abortion, and oftentimes that's the only choice they're given. It's like abortion, or we're going to like make your life a living hell. Actually, Mark Hamill, there was a story recently about Mark Hamill was basically like outed as having tried to pressure the girlfriend of his son to getting an abortion, and they did like some really nasty, kind of like almost like threats. Yeah, of like, you have this baby, we're gonna
disown you, and we're gonna not support you in any way. And
it was it's obvious that they're pressured and all that.
So yes, choice for two works to expose abortion for the human rights violation that it is. We encourage women to choose their babies over death, and we help them practically. So if you're in any of these situations, reach out to Choice for Two. You can reach out via their website, on Facebook, on Twitter, any of these platforms, and they will contact you with individuals that will get you the help that you need so that you do not feel compelled to choose death. Yep.
Yeah, we like to say here that we almost have a mission, and I think Steven's mission is very similar to Pinky in the Brain. It's like, hey, Steven, what are we going to do tonight? Hey, what are we going to do tonight, Steven?
We are going to get Laura Clausen on the show sometime.
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Trying to get Laura on the show.
Sometime. One day.
Someday. Gonna happen.
And but until then, we will continue to support Choice for Two.
And Steven's going to geek out. Like, he's going to be like that.
That was... I met Laura Clausen once.
Oh, okay.
And yes, I was like that. Like, I had the biggest smile, and I was like, I don't ask for selfies, but can we have a selfie?
He's like a creepy fan at those Comic-Cons.
A little bit. A little bit.
Really can't hide it. That's cool. That's like Laura Clausen is basically Steven's celebrity crush.
In a platonic way.
In a very platonic celebrity crush. But we think I really appreciate all the people that do some great, incredible work out there. I'm the same way with Lila Rose in the States, and what's her name, Beth Ali Stuckey, and all the people that do Ali Beth Stuckey. Okay, and then Jonathan Van Maren. I think that they're fantastic people. So
so we have ins, like that we if have I met ins with some of those people.
Yeah, I'd get like that if I met like Ben Shapiro or
Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh. Well, Matt Walsh would be interesting. I wouldn't get as giddy.
Oh, if you got really giddy, he would just look at you and be like,
"You're canceled.
You're canceled.
You're canceled. You're out of the seat, baby, again for life, baby."
Yeah, then we'd mourn. But we do actually have to talk about other things. So let's talk about NASA. NASA unveils stunning new images of unseen universe from James Webb Telescope. The 5 images capture never-before-seen details of distant galaxies, infant stars, and exoplanets.
Exoplanets. Sounds like bugs.
The set of mind-blowing full-color images, which come more than 6 months after the powerful telescope was launched, include never-before-seen details of exoplanets, infant stars, and distant galaxies. So this is one of those images that's really interesting because all of these are galaxies.
Wow.
Like that's a galaxy, and that's a galaxy. Like these are all spiral a lot of these are spiral galaxies. Yeah, which is crazy, absolutely insane that you can capture that considering the vastness of a galaxy.
Which means that each one of those like little images has like thousands of stars.
Yep.
Within them, just each one. I heard this on the Timpool IRL, Tipcast IRL, and I was like that. I was like that can't be right. They referenced something that happened when there was a power outage in LA where like all the lights went out for a certain amount of time, and there was a lot of phone calls because people were seeing something weird in the sky and they couldn't figure out what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it was the Milky Way. They had never seen the Milky Way before.
Yeah.
They're like, there's something weird in the sky. It's like, it's Milky Way? It's okay.
Yeah. So this is also a really interesting image. It's of what's called the Southern Ring Nebula in near-infrared light at left and mid-infrared light at right from the James Webb Telescope. So
That's so crazy.
yeah, I have never seen an image. I don't think I've ever seen an image of the Southern Ring Nebula, but the fact that you can see it in infrared from this telescope is really nifty.
That's impressive. So this is basically like a gigantic like cloud of like.
Well, yeah,
like
nebulas are typically massive clouds of space gas.
That's really crazy.
So
like one of the elementals or immortals from like like Marvel like farted, just left behind a gigantic ring. It's like, oh jeez. What is the next?
The next one is an enormous new image. NASA's telescope reveals never before seen details of a galaxy group, Stephan's Quintet. So this is another of those massive galaxies pictures.
Wow.
So that's insane.
That would be crazy to see.
Although
imagine,
you really have to wonder what the heck this is. Because like that image, like these are all of course galaxies.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the heck is this big?
What are they covered in?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the enormity of space is something phenomenal. You ever seen those videos, Steven? Of where they show you like Earth and they zoom out and then they show you like the planets and like size comparisons, and the sun, and they zoom out and they see the bigger stars.
Dang. Okay,
What?
Danny.
What?
So, just being a bit of a computer nerd.
Okay.
This image.
Mm-hmm.
So your typical image that you have has probably a few 100,000 pixels.
Yep.
Give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Like probably quite a few less than that. Like even a 1080p video. A 1080p video is 1280 by 1080 and you're looking at a total pixel count. No, it's 1920 by 1080. So you have a total pixel count of 2 million.
Okay.
And that's HD video. This image that we're looking at now has 150 million pixels and was constructed from almost 1,000 separate image files.
Wow.
So it's like, that's intense.
That's an immense amount of
It says that
detail.
the enormous mosaic of the picture covers 1/5 of the moon's diameter.
Wow. Oh,
Right.
apparently remember how we were wondering what those things were, like the fading kind of lines in that picture?
Yep.
Apparently those are driven by an active black hole in the middle of the quintet. So
Interesting.
apparently like a lot of the stuff in that little cluster is being sucked in by a black hole.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Definitely. Like this is stuff that's like innovative, beautiful. Like it shows like the
wonders
enormity
of our
the
galaxy.
Right.
The wonders of our galaxy. And now we
now
focus on things that are the stupidity of our galaxy.
Now some are related because this is about Thor.
Yeah.
And Thor is kind of like an intergalactic kind of like
Intergalactic adventures of love and thunder. So Thor 4. I'll probably go see it, yeah. Well,
interesting.
I probably won't see it in theaters just because of I haven't seen a movie for ages in theaters, and with my with my mother-in-law in her current state as she is with a broken hip, it's really hard to find time where we can get away from the kids.
So you just gotta make it happen, eh?
Yep. So, Thor 4 fans are called stupid for demanding a trigger warning at the beginning of the movie for upsetting chemo scene involving one of the main characters. So the new box office hit, which came out on July 6th, features Hemsworth, Christian Bale, Natalie Portman. Scientist Jane Foster, Portman's character, is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and battles the illness throughout the film. In one scene, she undergoes chemo, and some fans on Twitter have argued for a trigger warning Twitter warning. Others have called the suggestion stupid, and the movie certificates have already existed for a decade.
It's like, you guys are idiots.
Yeah.
If you want to... did you know, Stephen, that there's a website, particularly for parents, you can look up, and they will tell you everything you can expect to see in the movie.
Yep.
Like, there are no surprises. So the fact that these people like went to see this movie and didn't see that, it shows how lazy they are.
Yeah.
Not how like, oh, like, you know, we're like yeah, it just seems stupid.
Yeah.
But it just seems silly because, like, you know, shows how much the people that are complaining about the stuff are like complete snowflakes.
Yep. So, according to, these are quotes from people's tweets. No spoilers, but Thor: Love and Thunder should have had a trigger warning for graphic depiction of cancer, and the fact that we didn't know going in is atrocious. A user shared, cancer is way too common of a trigger, and when they show it that graphically, with that much imagery, and dwelling on it, and talking about it that much, you need to be warned, especially for a Marvel movie, which people go to for escapism, and shouldn't have to read the comics, he later wrote in a thread. Another person agreed and shared, been through treatment twice, and I've got such PTSD from it. I'm glad I knew the plot so I can skip it.
Gosh.
Another Marvel and Thor fan backed the idea. Stop misinterpreting and spreading misinformation. These are really sensitive issues and could trigger people. I panicked until I knew the context. Please.
Gosh.
Yep, that's really, really stupid. However, an opposing camp of fans disagreed to ask Marvel to flash a warning sign before the scene at issue, calling those demanding for it stupid.
Yes, thank you.
Trigger warnings. Seriously, a Thor 4 fan tweeted. Are people that weak-minded that you can't deal with a dramatic scene? It's not like this is the first movie to do this. How stupid. So I watched this last night. Honestly, you want trigger warnings? Films tell stories. BBC journalist Josh Rom stated on social media. Good for him. He added, get the help and therapy you need, but don't blame the movie for a touching storyline. Jeez.
Jeez.
How would a trigger warning at the beginning of Thor even work? Another Twitter user wrote. You've already bought the ticket and are minutes away from watching it.
It's true. You've already wasted the money at that point. That's actually a really good point.
Oh, and this is actually a really good point. Lol, these kids crying about the new Thor movie not having a trigger warning, reading what was upsetting. How come nobody was fussing about the opening scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1?
That's true.
Because she literally dies from cancer in the opening scene.
And it's really traumatic, and that's kind of like the...
Well, it's part of what defines his character.
That's integral to his entire story arc and all that.
Yep.
So.
But nope. We had less snowflakes in 2014.
This is obviously this is what they do in university campuses. So students are given trigger warnings for lectures and for basically these people are infantilized. They're treated like children that they can't handle even the most basic, the most simple things. And these aren't even bad things because it's not like they're making light of cancer. They're just the story just happens to have a plot thread that involves somebody who's going through cancer. Yeah, and so if you're that kind of person that is that easily sensitive, you need to take the proactive steps of preparing yourselves. You can't expect the world to be bubble wrap for you. You have to be the one to do it. So, the worst part about this is we thought this insanity would stay in universities, but it's spreading out into the regular world.
Yep. Well, because if you allow, part of the problem is that we ignored this for too long. We ignored the wokeism and the rise of it in university and in popular culture. And now it's we ignored it, and now the people that learned about it in university are now running some of these companies. They're now the ones who moderate the content. And so now we have to deal with it, and now we're fighting on the defensive because too many people sat back and said, it's just the universities. Just let them have their silliness. We thought
it was just going to stay in that confined area, and now they're trying to push that into the regular world, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah,
but I think that the next story.
The next one is worse.
Yeah,
Friends co-creator Marta Kaufman apologizes for misgendering Chandler Bing's trans parent. Kaufman also says she regrets not having enough diversity on the show, which is mostly white. So, co-creator Marta Kaufman apologized in a recent interview for misgendering character Chandler Bing's transgender mother during the show's 10-year run. Pronouns were not something yet that I understood, Kaufman told the BBC in an interview. So we didn't refer to the character as a she. That was a mistake. She also regrets referring to the elder Bing character as father rather than mother. We kept referring to her as Chandler's father, even though Chandler's father was trans. In early seasons of the syndicated sitcom, references to Chandler Bing also headlined a drag review under the name Charles Bing. Sorry, not Chandler.
Oh, you dead named him.
Ah, yes. Well, no, I just misread it. Because Charles and Chandler, when you kind of skim, look very similar. So, headlined a drag review under the name Helena Handbasket, was relegated mainly to one-liner jokes like one from the first season when Chandler said, "If I turn into my parents, I'll either be an alcoholic blonde chasing after 20-year-old boys or I'll end up like my mom." Ooh!
I know. This is, okay, so this is very similar to what's happening right now with, so we talked last week about how Jordan Peterson got ousted by Twitter for apparently doing the crime of not being willing to play along with the game that they're playing with Elliot Page, right? The game is you have to pretend that Ellen Page never existed. You have to pretend that there's no such thing. That's illusion. You're just totally imagining it, and it's all in your imagination, and all this kind of stuff, right? It's it's like I don't know. There's movies where people are like, told like the lies, or like, like, oh no, you were like asleep, but you weren't really that person. You were like, it's like they want you to play along with the lie, right? And that's what they did with Elliot Page. Now with this, they want you to essentially apologize for your past sins, and you're held to the standards of the modern day.
Yep.
Back then, there was never a problem. I've never talked to a single person who thought that the Friends cast was too white.
Yep.
It's like, no, that's just who they chose. They chose characters based on like specific personality traits that they were going for. I've never heard anybody complain that the cast of How I Met Your Mother is too white.
Yeah.
Nobody, because we were like, no, those are just the characters that just happen to be featured.
Yeah.
Just like I don't complain that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air has too many black characters. Like, oh, where's the diversity? It's like, no, that's just the people that are featured there. It's fine. But they're basically trying to force people to apologize for past crimes, supposedly, that were never a crime back then, but they're trying to use like, a way of like, using modern standards to accuse you of what you did in the past. And this is actually like the common thread here. It's very similar to what happened with Macy Gray. You heard about that story, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
yep,
so
Macy Gray, and then, well, what I found was more interesting about the Macy Gray story was the interaction that Matt Walsh had with J.K. Rowling.
What do you think?
So, well, because Matt Walsh initially was truthful when it came to Macy Gray, and he openly said Macy Gray was clearly cowardly in how she acted when she said, "Oh yes, like changing your parts doesn't make you a woman," and then a few days later simply said, "Well, I misspoke, and I'm fully supportive of people living out their truth." And Matt Walsh was like, "Well, you're a coward, and you didn't really stand behind your beliefs." And J.K. Rowling's like, "Well, what about people that got threats?" And like, clearly people were out for Macy Gray. And he's like, "I get that all the time because of my film, What is a Woman?" And what I thought was awesome was J.K. Rowling said, "Yes, your film did point out the craziness of the modern trans like plague." And I'm like, J.K. Rowling watched his film?
She's based.
And I'm like,
I like it.
My jaw hit. I was telling Stephanie, and she's just like, J.K. Rowling follows the Daily Wire. I'm like,
well, in
probably not,
world,
but
no. But the way is, if you're a thinking person, if you're a reasonable thinking person, the only safe place you have to go, and the only place you're going to find reasonable and logical and thinking people are in the conservative right. Yeah. That's the only place that they live. I like that I like the way that Michael Knowles, characterized the Macy Gray situation. He's like, that sounded a little bit like somebody like in like Soviet Russia, like reading from they're reading from a script and they have a gun to their head or something like that. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like Macy Gray somebody got to her and they're like, oh, there are going to be some very serious repercussions for you if you don't say the line. Yeah. And she's like, and of course, most of these people, they're pragmatic.
Yeah,
it's like they don't believe in their stance strong enough in order to kind of hold strong against like real pressure.
Yes.
And it's like most of the, like we complain, pastors in Canada or United States, like when push comes to shove, how much do you believe in what you believe? And it's like, well, if you have like very light kind of like integrity, you're not going to hold strong.
You're not going to hold strong.
All right.
Yeah. So I have no idea how to transition from that into the death and assassination of Shinzo Abe.
Oh, this is the whole story revolves around one person who was very heavily triggered and decided to take matters into their own hand.
So Shinzo Abe's killer held a grudge over mother's bankruptcy, police say. So Yamagami jury-rigged a weapon from parts bought online, spending months plotting the attack, even attending other Abe campaign events, including one a day earlier, some 200 kilometers away. So, the man who killed Shinzo Abe believed the former Japanese leader was linked to a religious group he blamed for his mother's financial ruin and spent months planning the attack with a homemade gun, police told local media. Tetsuya Yamagami, an unemployed 41-year-old identified as the suspect of murder on Friday after a man was seen in videos repeatedly shown on Japanese television calmly approaching Japan's longest-serving prime minister from behind and firing. Wiry and bespeckled with shaggy hair, the suspect was seen stepping into the road behind Abe, who was standing on a riser in an intersection before unloading 2 shots from the weapon wrapped with black tape. He was tackled by police at the scene. He was a loner who did not reply when spoken to. Neighbors told Reuters he believed Abe and promoted a religious group that his mother went bankrupt donating to, Kyoto News Agency said, citing investigative sources. So
yeah, so the story is basically... the prime minister, the former prime minister of Japan, he basically, I guess, at some point he endorsed or said something favorable about some kind of religious group in Japan, and I guess his mother went bankrupt. So the take I like about this story, first of all, this guy created a gun, like. Kudos on him. I mean, I'm not supporting what he did, but I'm like it is very difficult to create a gun from scratch because he basically got steel piping. He found a way to form it. He used all sorts of online stuff. How this man was able to do this without getting flagged by authorities is something remarkable. And I was actually wow, I was actually quite impressed because a lot of people who plan things like this, they usually get caught
in the planning
beforehand because whatever they look up online or whatever things that they order, they usually tip off authorities if something's going on. But this guy was able to make a gun. So I'm like, if you're gonna say if you're gonna say that criminals might get guns, so we need to outlaw them. It's like, well, this guy made a gun using homemade parts. I'm like, yeah, good luck outlawing guns. Yeah. So I'm like, wow. Okay, whatever. I don't know.
No, I'm laughing because you were talking about looking up things that were kind of suspicious and not appropriate, and it just reminded me organization called Rooster Teeth. They do these videos called Animated Adventures. One of the first ones was just so funny because he says that one of the first things he did when his family acquired the internet was look up a manual called the Anarchist Cookbook. And so he's like, yeah, department is giving me a few calls. And I'm like, oh, okay. And apparently in this Anarchist Cookbook, they tell you strange methods to making things. Oh. And so they're like, oh yeah, you want to make napalm? First step, boil gasoline. And he's like, okay. So at 14, he boils gasoline in his parents' house. And his mother just starts crying, what are you doing? Why do you want to kill us all? He's like, no, it's perfectly safe. And it's like, no, it's not. You're boiling gasoline.
Yeah, it's a little bit dangerous. We don't recommend it at home.
Do not do that.
The fumes alone are good enough.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah.
But I think that here's one takeaway I'd like from this story.
Yeah.
Somebody they said that this guy had some very serious mental health issues.
Yes.
Okay, and this is only going to get worse because let's face it, lockdowns, the incredible mental health problems that we've unleashed on people with everything from vaccines to all the surveillance to the punitive measures that we're taking. Like, this kind of stuff is only going to get worse. The fact that this guy was able to get to the former prime minister and successfully kill him shows you that this is doable and that this will likely get worse. I mean, Stephen, how unlikely do you think it is that somebody wouldn't try to make a go for Joe Biden, for Justin Trudeau, for any of these people? Right now, I would gather to bet that there are people who hate these men with such ferocity that they would be willing. It's just a matter of whether or not they have the capacity to do it. But I believe that there are probably people out there who hate world leaders so much that they might be willing to go. And I would not be shocked if this actually started like this happened in the next couple of years, because the way that we're doing this world wrong.
Yes. And because of that, Japan is not the only country that's in kind of a state
fighting back against
fighting
the
back in
state
a state
control.
of distress. So Sri Lanka, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa flees the country on military jet. This is from only 34 minutes ago. So
go down to the video. I want to show the video of the stuff down there. It's a little bit down, because it shows you a bit of the chaos that was taking over.
Okay.
January 6th was nothing compared to what these people did.
Yeah, no kidding.
Put it in full screen. Demonstrations in Sri Lanka have set the
Prime
PM's
Minister's
house on fire.
Anger at high inflation and shortages of fuel and feud. Yeah. Prime Minister was not in the building when it was set alight.
They actually set his building on fire. That's crazy. And here they are inside. Is this his house?
This is the presidential
palace. January 6th, eat your heart out.
Thousands of demonstrators marched to the capital, Colombo, and took over the president's residence.
And they're lying on his bed.
Yeah. This is January 6th.
Yeah. Full on. Oh, they're in the bathroom doing their hair.
Yeah, some even went for a swim in the pool.
Hey, why not, eh?
Yep.
Just relax, all this stuff.
President reportedly been moved to a safer location.
Yeah, I would hope so.
They've been calling for the president to resign. Amid months of protests over the country's economic crisis.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all a little bit. But yeah, so it shows you I remember hearing about this, and this was probably the most significant uprising we've seen in the last little while. Do you remember that there was an uprising in Kazakhstan, right?
Yes, about the.
We covered that
they said it was about fuel, I think.
They said it was about fuel prices.
Yeah.
But I think it was also related to COVID vaccine mandates as well.
Yep.
People are going to be
a bunch of stuff adding together. Well, what they're doing, of course, is leading to a perfect storm. Because by all relevant accounts, and we've been hearing this from all over, it's oh yes, we're going to talk about the WHO is going to suggest bringing masks back, and I was reading an article earlier this week, and they're oh yes, according to Albertan wastewater, COVID is on the rise again, and we're going to have another outbreak, and lockdowns are going to come back, and it's do you continue to do this, and with rising fuel prices, and with rising inflation, You are going to bankrupt citizens, and then bankrupt citizens who are starving, who don't have a place to live and don't have any food to eat, will riot and revolt.
Well, we like when I heard that we're bringing back the mask, I knew we were going to do this stuff again. In my head, I'm like, we've covered this.
Yes,
we've been over this, people. Like the fact that people are still like, calling for lockdowns and masks. I'm like, oh my goodness, we have so far to go with people. People still believe. Can you believe that people are still walking around even now on buses and stores? They're still wearing their masks. I just mostly just shake my head, but I'm just like,
well, I was walking to get some food this afternoon for lunch, and I saw this woman, and she put on her mask as soon as she left her car.
Ugh.
And I'm like, the parking lot is still like 100 meters to the doors. Like, what are you doing?
It's like a safety blanket to them.
Oh, it is.
Like they literally feel like they have to like hold themselves back with their safety blanket. But so Sri Lanka is a basically. I think it's only like the first of what will eventually be a massive amount of countries all over the world. Because I mean, just let's step back, put it all into perspective. Everything is all connected. You see all these fires of like food plants. And of course, they're trying to tell us, like, oh, there's no connection, whatever. I'm like, okay, it seems a little bit sketchy because there's like a lot of them happening. Then you see them starting to create these like bug plants where they're trying to manufacture bugs, and they're trying to like create all these conditions, inflationary conditions, try to force people to basically like they're trying to create and manufacture food crises. Like it's like this is all connected.
Yes, it is.
So shows the
protest that we covered a bit of last week, the Dutch farmers protest. A bit more of a breakdown of it. So from the American Conservative, the protests in the Netherlands are about not just nitrogen and farmland, but the very nature of government after COVID. So farmers in the Netherlands are protesting on a scale unheard of in their country. They're furious about government proposal that puts many of them out of business. Farmers argue the government's true aim is to seize their highly valuable farmland. They are protesting under the slogans of "No farmers, no food," to warn of the dangers of giving up domestic food supply independence to rely on imports instead. The origins of the crisis is a 2019 ruling by the highest administrative court in the Netherlands. It ruled that the measures the Dutch government had taken to reduce emissions of nitrogen oxide and nitrogen ammonia were not in compliance with the European Union rules. In June, the Dutch government responded to the court's ruling by the proposal. It says reducing the number of livestock in the country is the only way to significantly cut nitrogen emissions. Nitrogen ammonia is produced by livestock. They have a large farming sector. The country has roughly the same land area as Maryland, but is the world's second largest exporter of agricultural products by value after America. That's really interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Like they're like their food exports are massive.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes.
So they started protesting after the court's ruling, but the issue mostly went to the back burner when the pandemic hit. The government offered voluntary buyouts of farms, but there was little uptake. The problem came to the forefront again last September, when a leaked government report presented several scenarios, including forced sales of farms. In June, Christian van der Wal, cabinet minister for Nature and Nitrogen, said the strong measures.
They just make these up.
Oh yeah, strong measures are needed. Is a fact. Nitrogen emissions must go down.
Nope, garbage. Total,
I know.
Total theory.
So that started the farmers to start protesting anew. They deployed tractors to block supermarket distribution centers. This quickly led to empty shelves. Farmer says this gives people a foretaste of what will happen when Dutch farms are shut down. So they've been blocking highways and parking their tractors outside businesses. They claim emit more nitrogen oxide and nitrogen ammonia than they do. More is on the way. We are going to continue protesting, but in the way the Netherlands has never seen before, said farmer William Schoenhaven at the makeshift press conference in the town of Eerbeek on July 8th.
You know what this reminds me of? You saw that video last week of the climate protesters on that highway in Maryland, and they were like literally sitting on the highway, and it became a viral incident because there was a guy who was trying to get to work because he was going to like break his parole if he didn't, and you can tell not one of the people
cared
on that cared. They couldn't care less about the impact or the detrimental impact that they had on people. This Dutch, like the government, it's a bigger scale of what they were doing.
Yeah.
They don't care about you. They don't care if people die. They don't care if people go out of business. They don't care if people go bankrupt and living on the streets.
Yeah.
This is the epitome of climate alarmism. It's like that story of the Chicken Little. You ever see that Chicken Little cartoon when you were little? It's like the fox tried to manipulate like a little chicken to try to like, get everyone to play along. And that's what this is.
Yes.
The government is basically manipulating people, telling them like, "Oh, the world's going to." It's like, people are like, "Oh my God, what should we do? What should we do?" Like all the chickens are clucking, and they'll like run out of like the safety of the chicken
speaking
pen.
of course, as a follow-up to that, of evil, you heard what the protesters did after that guy got fired?
They tried to like raise money.
They did. They
his
raised $100,000.
Yeah.
And then people were like, okay, well, how are you going to give it to him? And they're like, we'll find him. And it's like, okay,
somehow.
do you have his name? No. Do you have his phone number? No. Do you have his email? No. Then how are you going to give it to him? Well, eventually.
Somehow.
It's like, you wonder why people don't trust you.
These people are complete and total liars and crooks. Like they are the worst of society. They really are. But the thing is, we tend to think that the government policies, so like we were like looking at the government policies about banning straws, and we're like, oh, well, that's an inconvenience, right? Mm-hmm. But like all these environmental policies are going to stop being like annoying and inconvenience to start being destructive.
Yep.
And they will. That like right now we're just like, oh, this is annoying. They're going to take away single-use plastics. I'm like, no, this is going to get destructive, and
yes.
it's all part of a global plan. Like when we think like that there's a global like lockstep, we're not making it up. This is actually observable.
Yes. And
the fact that Canada is following the exact same like framework as the Netherlands should not surprise a person.
Yep.
Although some people will be surprised. But yeah, take it away,
Some people will be surprised. But it's not surprising that Trudeau is doing the same bloody thing. Trudeau's nitrogen policy.
They're beholden to the WEF.
Yep. Nitrogen policy will decimate Canadian farming. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Much like in the Netherlands, Justin Trudeau is bringing a nitrogen emissions cap that will absolutely decimate Canadian farming. In December 2020, the Trudeau government unveiled their new climate plan with a focus on reducing nitrogen oxide emissions from fertilizer by 30% below 2020 levels by 2030. Fertilizers play a major role in the agriculture sector's success and have contributed to record harvests in the last decade. They've helped drive increases in Canadian crop yields, grain sales, and exports, a news release from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada reads. However, nitrous oxide emissions, particularly those associated with synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, use has grown significantly. This is why the Government of Canada has set the National Fertilizer Emissions Reduction Target, which is part of the commitment to reduce global GHG emissions in Canada by 40 to 45% by 2030.
Yeah, I wonder why 2030. I wonder if there's something important about that date. Something about that date.
The end of the world.
Yeah. It's the end of the world as we know it.
Yes. It is.
Trudeau sucks.
We knew that. So this is a tacit admission that any attempt to lower emissions by reducing nitrogen fertilizer will consequently lower crop yields over the next decade, hurting the agriculture sector and, more importantly, hurting farmers.
It's funny how how we found out that the Netherlands is a major exporter of food. Funny enough, do you know what else? Do you know what Canada is also kind of big in the world for? Exporting? Grain. Wheat and all these other major agricultural products. We're I think second in the world, next to Ukraine and other places for we're Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world. Canada is breadbasket of most of North America and a lot of other places. This, you know what this sounds very similar to? It's very similar to what the Soviets were trying to do in the I think 1950s and 60s. They have these this grand idea that they're going to reform the agricultural sector of the Ukraine, all that kind of stuff, and they're experimenting on their little plans. Ended up killing millions of people.
Yep,
that's how millions and millions of Ukrainians and Poles and people all in the Soviet Union, that's what they died.
Yep.
And China also did the same thing. They're like, we're going to make everything better, and like people died. Well, funny enough, Justin Trudeau will eventually go down in history if he succeeds, doing the exact same thing. He's going to join his communist papa and going to kill millions of its own people.
Yep. Because he's just following the agenda of the globalists.
Yeah, none of this is by accident.
No.
Like, Justin Trudeau didn't sit down one day with a little crayon and decide, like, here's my plan for, like, here's my 10-year plan. He was literally handed a plan by some, like, group or something like that. And he's like, here's what you're going to do. And here's the policies you have to follow through with. So
yep.
It's sad. It would be tragic if it wasn't so sad.
Yes. But speaking of the globalists and their agenda, the WHO recommends masks again. Preps world for global lockdown in fall. The WHO is preparing for the world for a next season of lockdowns, refusing to admit the emergency is over and recommending governments re-implement mask mandates.
Of course they are.
I'm concerned that cases of COVID-19 continue to rise, putting further pressure on health systems and health workers. I'm also concerned with the increasing trend of deaths. The Emergency Committee on COVID-19 met on Friday last week and concluded the virus remains a public health emergency of international concern, said WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom.
Do you notice though, like there was like a quote I heard somewhere? There's a doctor said, like, in the past, every doctor that he talked to, like, oh yeah, they all trusted like the CDC, World Health Organization, all the. He's like, I have never in my lifetime met so many doctors who have literally no confidence or trust in any of these like international or even national health organizations, and like that's concerning. The fact that no doctor has confidence in these things should really concern us.
Yes. So he bemoaned the drop in vaccine uptake, saying not nearly enough people are lining up to get their second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th boosters.
Yeah, you should get like those like frequent flyer, like those little stamp cards.
He recommends that countries return to the days of mask mandates, mandatory COVID testing, and mass surveillance. As hospitalizations and transmissions rise, governments must try and deploy tested measures such as masking, improved ventilation, and test and treatment protocols, Adhanom said. Governments should also work to reduce their reduction in surveillance, testing, and sequence, and share antivirals effectively. He concluded by praising the vaccine. Advising governments to once again go after the unvaccinated and proclaiming the pandemic is not over. What does he mean by go after the unvaccinated?
Well, they need to like put the pressure on them.
Put the pressure on us purebloods. Yes.
Yeah, you know why though, right?
Oh, yes.
Because by the fact that there's unvaccinated people and there's so many of them, it shows how, because we're basically like the test sub. We're the
guinea pigs.
We're the control group.
We're the control group. They're the guinea pigs.
Yeah, and so the control group is exposing how utterly bad these things are. Like I remember like I showed you like something that there's so many studies showing that these shots are like killing so many more people than the virus itself did or is. Like it's unbelievable. So anyways, go on.
Yes. So it was absolutely nonsensical. But
yeah, like we knew this was coming.
Oh yeah,
we predicted this at the beginning of the year. Remember?
Oh yeah,
we said
we predicted it's like, oh yeah, as soon as they say that all this stuff is going away, it's like it's just going to be going away until there's a rise in cases again.
And we thought it was going to be the fall.
Well, based on what everybody's saying and based on cases numbers and all these other things, it's going to be rising in the fall. And so I'm just waiting for, like, whenever they introduce these things, my goodness, is the rallies going to be huge.
Yeah,
like,
because I think
we had 13,000 people in February, give or take. It's like, if you introduce these again,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and more people are just saying, stop it, go away, we're done.
We're done with this. Yeah.
And you get more and more people onto that. Like every time that they lock down and reopen, there's more people to protest. Like in 2021, when they opened up for summer, when they had that opening up on Canada Day. And so you opened up, and then in the fall we had a decent amount of people attend the protest. In the spring of 2021, we had significantly less. We only had about 3,000 or 4,000 people to protest. And then by February, when they had the truckers rally, we had 13,000. If they implement strict lockdowns in the fall, I could see there being about 20,000 people plus at these protests.
Yeah.
And it's going to be huge.
Yeah, and it's also because more and more people are getting aware of the lies that they've been told. Now, in some places, like, people are just like so completely indoctrinated into the echo chamber that they're never going to get out. Like Toronto, good luck getting Toronto out of that mindset. But people here, like, I continue to run into more and more people where I'm not even surprising them anymore.
Yep.
They're like, oh yeah, like, they
I
know
heard that before, and it's like,
yeah,
good for you. Oh yeah, like even my coworkers, like I remember at the start, like when I started working with my coworkers, they're like, oh yeah, like I took the shots, like I figured what the heck it would help, and then I'm like, yeah, they're probably gonna mandate that people have 3 shots, and they're like, I'm not doing that. They're like, they told me this was over, and then all I had to do was 2, and it didn't do nothing.
Liars.
And I'm like, no, it didn't do nothing. He's like,
Not
yeah.
yet.
He's like, if they tell me to take 3, I'll just tell them to shove it. And I'm like, good. I'm like, we will rise up.
Yep. Yeah, we're hoping that happens, but let's keep moving because we got a lot of stars.
We do.
So we got. Let's talk about Elon Musk. Because Elon Musk is he is the king as always.
Yeah. Now I'm not. I think this is a bit of a weird situation, but I'll explain that once we talk about the stories. Twitter sues Elon Musk for backing out of $44 billion acquisition. I think it's 44. Can't see behind my phone. Yes, it is. Saying the billionaire is obligated to complete the deal. Twitter has sued Elon Musk for trying to walk away. Musk said last week accused Twitter of several instances of breach, saying they nullified the deal. Twitter pushed back on Musk's antics, saying his claims were pretext and lacked any merit. So they followed through on the promise to sue Elon over his attempt to walk away. In the lawsuit filed Tuesday, lawyers for Twitter accused Musk of refusing to honor his obligations. The suit was filed in Chancery Court in Delaware, where Twitter is incorporated. At issue with the lawsuit is Musk's attempt last week to terminate the merger agreement that he signed in April, saying that he would acquire Twitter and take it private for $54.20 per share, putting a value on the deal of $54 billion. Lawyers for Twitter over the weekend called Musk's move invalid and wrongful. In Musk's letter of backing out, he accused Twitter of refusing to hand over usable user data, saying it had misled him and the SEC on the number of bots or spam accounts present on the platform, and that it had made decisions to conduct layoffs and let go of key executives without getting his approval, all of which allegedly constitute a breach of the agreement, lawyers for Musk said, meaning he can walk away from the deal and he does not even have to pay the $1 billion breakup fee included in the agreement. They pushed back on all these points, calling them pretexts and lack any merit.
Yeah, you should go like immediately to
Not
the
the
story
B?
from Not the B.
Okay.
Because this was what, like, so obviously, like, this was big news when, like, he said that he terminated the deal. But Elon is, if he's like, you know, good at anything, he is insanely good
Add memes.
at memes. And I love this meme. This one went viral over the weekend. It was so good. Yeah.
So this is basically going with the story again. So Elon Musk, they said I couldn't buy Twitter. Then they wouldn't disclose bot info. Now they wanted me to force me to buy. I'm just going to click on Twitter because it allows me to read the whole thing. Now they want to force me to buy Twitter in court. Now they have to disclose bot info in court.
Oh, in court. And the way he is laughing and that was so good.
Yeah, I really can't wait to see this bot info if it actually gets to that point and they have to disclose it in court. Buckets of popcorn. Here's the next one he shared just after that one. Chuck Norris.
It's like,
just Chuck Norris.
Chuck
Norris with one chess piece.
One chess piece against, like, Twitter with, like, the entire chess set. So good. like the thing is, like the question is, what is going on? Like, here's.
I don't know what happened to Danny there. 1 second, I'm going to pause. Sorry. Technical issues.
Technical difficulties.
Wi-Fi primarily, I'm assuming.
I'm guessing so.
So yes, checkmate. So through all of Elon's crazy shenanigans, he's never been one to bluff, and he's saying he has Twitter right where he wants them. Better get some more popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
So
what Ben Shapiro basically broke down is that obviously it's difficult to tell how many bots are really inhabiting on the platform, but obviously, like Twitter is obviously acting like just jerks. That the whole company is showing itself to be absolutely like lacking of any integrity whatsoever. However, Elon also needs these things to properly be able to, like price the company. Mm-hmm. So it's not like his concerns are invalid. And so, really, what he's doing, he's forcing them to take him to court, because by doing so, then hopefully, like, they can kind of resolve the stuff in court. So it's a bit of a weird situation, because like they can't really, like, they've never actually tried to force a private person to pay out. Like there's no previous case of this actually happening in these kind of cases. Like they've only like involved like small amounts. Mm-hmm. So like a $44 billion deal, like how do you enforce that? How do you force someone to pay that kind of money? So it's interesting. Some people suggested that part of the reason is because maybe he wants to offload some of his Tesla stock without like devaluing the company. And if he's doing so in order to kind of take over Twitter, people might be like, oh, that's okay. But he's just doing it because he needs the money to do his Twitter takeover, and so that won't devalue the stock. If that's true, then that's pretty amazingly smart. So,
well, but the thing about that is like trying to offload Tesla stock. Mm-hmm. Tesla is like, they cannot make Tesla vehicles fast enough. Mm-hmm. So why would you want to offload a stock that is easily probably one of the most in-demand vehicle manufacturers in the planet? Mm-hmm. That's not a company you want to offload stock in.
Mm-hmm. But most of these billionaires, most of their assets are stocks.
That's true.
And so that's kind of like the only way they can actually get like actual money for whatever they need.
If they're saying it's just like, oh, well, I had to generate the funds so that I could buy Twitter, and it's like, oh, that's just so he could sell Twitter stock or Tesla stock. Yeah. Because Tesla it's like, well, Tesla's doing fine. It's not like Tesla's plummeting and it's like, oh, I have to sell right now.
No, but that's where the majority of its
income and
assets are found. Yeah, and so it would make sense. The one thing I'm glad that it sounds at least like the Twitter deal is still on.
Yes,
this is just more like like fancy negotiating to try to get try to get things done properly.
Yes,
and let's face it, like Twitter is a company that is so corrupt. It is mind-blowing how corrupt that company is.
Mind-bogglingly corrupt.
Mind-bogglingly corrupt. So I wouldn't trust them to sell me a stick of gum for the proper price.
They are the Hillary Clintons of social media.
Okay, if Steven kills himself tomorrow, don't believe the suicide note. Don't believe it.
I did not kill myself. It was Hillary. I have information that will lead to the arrest.
It's all over for Steven. All right, but Elon Musk, he also took some shots at someone else, other than just
took some shots at someone who thoroughly deserved it. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden. So, I'm on the wrong article. Sorry.
Yeah, you did.
I skipped over. Yeah. Elon Musk blats Biden's latest teleprompter blunder, compares it to Anchorman.
It's good reason.
At least he didn't say, go F yourself. America, mm-hmm. President Biden made a televised blunder Friday that could have been pulled straight from the classic Will Ferrell comedy Anchorman when he appeared to blurt out, repeat the line, reading a speech directly from a teleprompter. Critics
should probably play the video.
Yes,
so people can see it.
It's funny.
Power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political
You could see him leaning in to read it.
Power.
Yep.
That's what they were saying. You, the women of America, can determine the outcome.
Oh, it's sad.
Oh, it's so sad. You know, like that the White House went so hard trying to
they said it was
gaslight.
They said it was, instead of repeat the line, it was I'll repeat the line. It's like, but then you didn't repeat the line.
Yeah, they actually changed his transcript.
Yeah, they
did. You
did.
hear about that?
Yep.
They changed the So this is how much they lie. This is how much they couldn't care less about the truth. They changed the transcript to try to like obfuscate what he said. Be like, oh no. He actually said like the transcript didn't say that. It's actually he actually did, like, you know, he was trying to say, like, you know, let me repeat that. They totally lied about that. The news media tried at first to say, like, oh, end of quote. That's a normal thing to say at the end of a thing. And then they just ignored the repeat the line part. Anybody who reads these things, they know. Like, you know, who hears it, you know that he's lying.
Yeah,
so
this is a meme from Elon again, but it's from Anchorman. So classic line: "You stay classic, you say classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy." Damn it! We dropped a question mark on the teleprompter. For last time, anything you put on that prompter, Burgundy will read. I'm Ron Burgundy.
I hadn't seen that show, but it sounds like
you haven't seen
like
the Anchorman.
I have not. I'm not a humongous fan of Will Ferrell generally. So
he has like there's so many hit or miss with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like Anchorman 1 was funny, Anchorman 2 was stupid, except for the fight scene. The fight scene was just hilarious because they had a zillion cameos. It's like, we're the history, and they had this massive like news fight.
Okay.
And so it's like, as always, the rules are no hair and face attacks. And it's like, of course, that's the rules. We all know we have to go back on camera. And so they have all these news networks, and it's like, if you're first in sports, then he's like shooting a puck at the other person. And it's like Jim Carrey shows up. Hey, we're Canadian news, man. And they have Liam Neeson, and he shows up, and he's like, we're the History Channel. That's not news. It's news, but old news. It's like, oh my gosh.
Sounds like I might have to like check this out.
Yeah, just watch the fight scene. The fight scene is funny.
So the funny thing is, like, Joe Biden, it is ridiculously obvious that this man is on his way out. Like, mentally, this guy is done. And the media tries so hard to try to cover for him.
Yeah.
It is like trying to cover for a senile, like, grandpa.
Yes.
Now, in this case, it was harmless. But then Joe Biden, like, this shows
but then
that
he
Joe
just
Biden
made up stuff.
Well, no, he didn't. He was literally given a talking point, and like this shows this man he doesn't know what he's saying. He's just like, here, you're going to say this. Okay. He just does what he's told.
Yeah. So,
and this is when it becomes dangerous. So yeah.
Biden repeats the story of a 10-year-old allegedly needing an abortion that no one has been able to verify. On Friday, he repeated an unverified single-source claim made in various media outlets that a 10-year-old girl in Ohio had to travel to Indiana to receive an abortion due to the Buckeye State's strict abortion laws. He repeated the claim while signing an executive order on abortion access, using the story to insist restricting abortion is wrong. The horrifying story has been met with increasing skepticism in the absence of any corroborating report. This isn't some imagined horror, Biden said. It's already happening. Last week, it was reported that a 10-year-old girl was a rape victim, 10 years old, and she was forced to travel out of state to Indiana to seek to terminate the pregnancy and maybe save her life. Ohio law bans abortion after 6 weeks, except for in cases where the life of the mother is at risk, so the girl may actually have been able to obtain an abortion in Ohio. But the story Biden told came from a single source, Indianapolis obstetrician gynecologist Dr. Caitlin Bernard. Bernard told the Indianapolis Star on July 1st that she had received a phone call from a child abuse doctor in Ohio who said that they had a 10-year-old patient who needed an abortion. Bernard said the call came 3 days after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which triggered an Ohio law that banned abortion after 6 weeks. The child in question appeared to be exactly 6 weeks and 3 days, meaning her pregnancy alleged allegedly lined up perfectly with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Bernard told the Star that the young girl traveled to Indiana to perform an abortion.
To obtain an abortion.
Obtain.
That would be quite remarkable for a pregnant 10-year-old to be performing an abortion. Well done. That's a very talented young child.
And horrific.
Yeah. Making light of the gap.
I know you are.
Mr. Biden over here. Anyway, so a couple of things that I remember listening to a lot of people talk about this story. Not only a lot of even left-wing news sources tried to verify this thing and they couldn't, because the facts are very difficult to get. It's only one source. Nobody seems to be talking about the details. So if a child is actually raped, then there would be a police report, but there's no police report anywhere to be found. People are super hush-hush on the details. Nobody has been able to find anything to verify this. Michael Knowles actually brought us something I thought was really helpful, is that a 10-year-old girl being pregnant is insanely rare.
Yep.
Because girls
it's exceptionally rare for a 10-year-old to have her period, and then of course you don't get pregnant immediately after your first period. You can't.
Yeah. And so it's I think 8% of girls might be able to get pregnant at 10 years old, but even then it's very rare. And the fact that you can't even find any record of such a ridiculous crime happening is very suspect.
And the fact that it was oh yes, she's 6 weeks and 3 days, which ended up so that she was 6 weeks exactly as Roe overturned. It's really?
That seems extremely suspect.
You're just hoping that everybody's just oh yes, everything you say is true.
Yeah.
Don't believe my dying eyes.
Well, the other big part, the big, huge red flag, is that the doctor in question, you notice how they call her obstetrician, all that kind of
gynecologist.
This is an actual abortion doctor.
Yes, it is.
And not only an abortion doctor, but a very rabid pro-abortion activist who has really, really been very loud and outspoken about abortion. So right away, you have a story that can't be verified, a case that is extremely unlikely, and the person who's sharing the story is incredibly suspect. So altogether, this sounds like it was tailor-made for basic, it sounds like a hoax. And let's face it, the left has too much baggage on hoaxes, false stories, and made-up stories.
Indeed.
Like Jussie Smollett. Do I need to say more?
Jussie.
The media ran with that one.
Juicy.
And then the Covington boys, the whole hoax. So you're not wrong to think that story is totally made up. It sounds way too convenient for a talking point. The fact that Biden shared it should be he should be shamed for sharing such a story.
Yep.
But they never are.
Yeah. But we have to move on a little bit. So
let's go to Jill.
Let's go to Biden's wife, Jill, who is equally as stupid this week. So Jill Biden apologizes for comparing Hispanic community to breakfast tacos. So on Tuesday, First Lady Jill Biden issued an apology after she likened the diversity of the Hispanic community in San Antonio to bodegas. She didn't say bodegas.
What did she say?
She said Bogotas.
What's Bogotas?
The capital of Colombia.
Oh, really?
So she made the comments during a conference for the largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization, Unidos US, on Monday in San Antonio. In her speech, the First Lady praised the work of Raul Izaguirre. I think that's how I have no idea how you properly pronounce that. The former president. Izaguirre.
Izaguirre.
Thank you. I cannot roll my R's. I have a whitey.
Oh, you cannot pronounce that.
I'm sorry. I am Pedro.
You're not very sorry.
No, I'm not. I shall read the rest of the story like this.
Ore, señor. Get going.
In her speech, the First Lady praised the work of Raul, the former president and CEO of Unidos US, in helping to build the organization to serve this diverse Hispanic community in the US. Just last week, Izaguirre was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor an American civilian can receive. Raul helped build his organization with the understanding diversity of the community, as distinct as the bodegas. That's not what she said. She said Bogotas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio is your strength. Biden said. While speaking, she pronounced the word bodegas as boguetas.
Forget this.
So let's hear the speech from the stupid woman.
But we can't get those things on our own. Raul helped build this organization with the understanding that the diversity of this community, as distinct as the Bogotas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio,
Wow.
is your strength.
Wow.
Yep. Wow is right.
Jeez.
You know what was actually hilarious?
What?
Was that on Twitter, if you type in the word, if you put in hashtag I am, the immediate thing that follows it up with, I am not a taco.
Oh, really? It comes up right away?
Here, I'll show you. I'll show you. Twitter. So if I just pretended to write a tweet, I am, okay, so it's the second one. I am not a taco.
I guess it's got to be trending, hey?
I'm like, why is this a thing?
That's got to be trending because of Joe Biden.
Yeah, because of Joe Biden.
Oh, boy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just hilarious. So this is the apology. The First Lady apologizes that their words conveyed anything but pure admiration and love for the Latino community. He wrote on Twitter.
Wow.
The apology came after the National Association of Hispanic Journalists issued a statement calling on Biden and their communications team to better understand the complexities of our people and communities. We are not tacos, the organization wrote on Twitter.
That's the thing. Okay, here, I'll be fair on this one. I'll be a little fair. like I'm okay. Listen to that speech. I get what she was going for.
Yes, I do.
She was saying like that there's like so much variety in like as much as variety as like breakfast tacos or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I get that because like tacos have a ton of variety, so that's what she was going for. But like literally, what she got is caught with just saying something that like was taken the wrong way for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah, maybe not the best way to to kind of describe like like Mexicans. It's just breakfast.
Yeah,
and particularly like Hispanic community is much more than just Mexico and tacos. So
yeah,
chalk it up to a white lady who doesn't understand Latin community.
As diverse.
That's what I would go with.
As the spaghetti here in Sicily.
Yes, sir.
And the maple syrup here in the fields of Canada.
The fields of Canada.
The fields of in the maple syrup mines.
In the igloos of like shame.
Yeah. We will force you because you have been shamed, you have been cancelled. So we'll force you to hunt seals.
Rocky and Bullwinkle on your side.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's not
like,
the
that's
end
not
of the Biden family stupidity.
Oh, little Freudian slip.
Freudian slip, but you know what's coming. Oh, yes, Hunter Biden, you are wackadoo. 4chan users claim to have cracked Hunter Biden's iPhone account. I would not be surprised by this. Contents of Hunter Biden's iPhone XS appear to have been posted by users of the 4chan community who shared screenshots on the website's main political forum late Saturday. Administrators on the image board moved quickly in the hours after the content was posted to pull down threads that included materials from the alleged leak, leaving many on the site, which is known for featuring some of the most salacious subject matter on the internet. Furious. Many of the materials... Oh yeah, they're very mad on 4chan. Many of the materials posted by 4chan users match the contents the Washington Examiner previously found on a password-protected iPhone XS backup located on a copy of Hunter's abandoned laptop. Konstantinos Gus Dimitrelos, a former Secret Service agent turned cyber forensic expert, located the password to the iPhone backup during his examination of the hard drive. The Matrellos previously told the Washington Examiner that the data found within the password-protected iPhone backup is indisputably authentic. Based on my analysis, I conclude the same results as my analysis of the MacBook Pro and the iCloud sync data. The person who owns and operates this iPhone XS is Robert Hunter Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't go over what's inside, which is probably for the best.
It's probably for the... There's some horrible things.
Yeah.
But...
One of the just one creepy thing that's like one of the videos that's allegedly, which is clearly his face, is they're at a beach. I think it's a private beach, but still, there's like a 5-year-old girl who's just like playing in the sand, and he's just like walking out onto the beach, buck nude, and I'm like, what the heck? Why would you film this? And B, why would you do this?
The problem with Hunter Biden is the guy seriously has a lot of problems.
Yes.
Like it's obvious. That's not even in dispute. The problem is that there's a lot of like very serious overlap between Hunter Biden and his dad's dealings, and a lot of them have to do with Ukraine. A lot of them have to do with China. And there's some very shady business dealings that are going on that Hunter's involved in. And on top of that, like a lot of people are like, and I agree with them. A lot of people suspect that Hunter Biden and like his sister Ashley and maybe others in the family were probably very seriously abused by Joe Biden.
Well, one of the things that's allegedly on his phone is that one of the nicknames that he has for his dad is Pedo Pete.
Yeah.
And I believe he calls Jill Biden the pretentious C word.
Oh, okay.
Like he refers to it, Jill, the pretentious C word. It's like, what? Oh my.
Yeah, there's some very serious problems. Now, you could say like, obviously you could say like, well, here's a troubled family, like, you don't want to like ream on that. Yes, it's a troubled family, but it's also a troubled family that is incredibly corrupt and is doing some things that they should probably be in prison for. Like all of them, like from Hunter to Jill to Joe. There's some like this kind of stuff is the stuff that they accused the Trump family of doing, and yet Trump Jr., like Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka, are very well-adjusted adults. They're very smart people, very resourceful, very successful in their own right. You can tell there's a massive difference between their family and Joe's family, and like the fact that they're covering for Hunter is just horrifying.
Yep.
So yeah, the Biden saga in the States, like it's almost like
ongoing and terrible.
It's almost like gigantically tragic, and it's just more like it makes you shake your head at it's basically a ship that is like going down. The problem is in Canada, we have the opposite problem. We have basically a fool running the country into the ground, but this fool is
his
malicious.
Power is only going up,
and his power is going up.
Yeah. Whereas Joe Biden in 2020, at the end of this year, in November, and we will be covering this, of course, there will be a midterm election, and based on all available polls, the Democrats are going to get shellacked.
Yeah, and like the Republicans are going to absolutely destroy them.
I just hope they actually will do something with it.
Yeah, I hope so too.
So, but we do need to move on. So,
let's go to Canada.
From True North, half of Canadians believe country is on the wrong track to unity. Survey. So when it comes down to uniting the country, half Canadians believe Canada's on the wrong track, according to a new survey from Nano's research. The survey asked Canadians whether the country is on the right track to building a united country. Half of the respondents believe Canada's on the wrong path, while 22% believe it is on the right one. 28% were unsure.
Who are these 22% that they... Jeez, my goodness.
Those surveyed in the prairies were the most pessimistic about the country's direction, with 60% believing Canada's on the wrong path. 53% of Ontarians responded negatively, followed by Quebec, BC, and Atlantic Canada, according to the Nano survey. Yep.
Atlantic Canada.
Men were more likely to believe Canada's on the wrong track compared to women.
Because they're more agreeable.
Yep. Further, younger Canadians had a more pessimistic view of the country compared to older generations. That's surprising, actually. 58% of the respondents between the ages of 18 to 34 cited that Canada is on the wrong track to achieve unity, compared to ages 35 to 54, 53%, and 55 and older, 41%. See, I would find that you would think that this would be reversed, because the older populations would see, my goodness, our country is so terrible compared to what it once was. Whereas the younger population is like, I get free stuff, yay!
Or even more, like a lot of them who are really big on like the big hot topics, like climate change and feminism and all these things, and they like Trudeau because he's championing all our causes, and they're too young still to realize the insanity and stupidity of these policies.
Yeah. So of course, throughout the pandemic, governments in Canada have penalized those who chose to not receive the COVID-19 vaccine or disclose their vaccine status. Vaccine mandates and other public health restrictions have resulted in individuals losing their livelihoods and the loss of rights and freedoms, including the ability to travel and purchase groceries. In September 2021, Justin Trudeau even went as far as accusing unvaccinated Canadians of being extremists, misogynists, and racists. And that's not the end of Justin Trudeau's harassment of those in Canada that he disagrees with. He's likely directing the political persecution of Tamara Lich. As the political persecution of Tamara Lich wraps up, she is forced to spend more time in jail. It's important to take a look at all the surrounding circumstances of her current prosecution. She was arrested on February 17th after the Liberals rammed through the Emergencies Act, even after a judge had ruled the Freedom Convoy had a constitutional right to protest in Ottawa. The chief charge put against her is counseling to commit mischief, a charge that no one has ever spent behind bars for in Canada's history. Yet Tamara Lich is currently behind bars after the Crown pushed for her rearrest. To start, the entire case against her is wholly illegitimate. If a Canadian citizen can be thrown in jail for counseling to commit mischief, i.e. organizing a protest the government disapproves of, this is no longer a free country. The protest was ruled to be legal. Tamara was never violent or even advocated for violence. And her arrest and subsequent legal harassment seem to bear Justin Trudeau's fingerprints all over it. The original judge who denied Tamara Lich bail was a Liberal donor and candidate with ties to Trudeau. According to reporting from True North and independent journalist Andy Lee, the prosecutor, Moise Karimji, is another heavy Liberal donor who has been at events with Trudeau in the past.
Yeah.
So, this isn't to say that Trudeau is getting on the phone, but when you look at all the surrounding details of the case, it paints a picture.
There's a really great video by Viva Fry. If you don't know who that is, he's a very, very famous, very prominent Canadian podcaster or YouTuber who talks about legal issues. He gave a complete rundown of the malicious prosecution of Tamara Lich, and he basically concluded this is what the government is doing is they're going above and beyond to such a scale that it doesn't, you can't even suggest that that there's plausible deniability. It is so obvious that they are actively going against this woman that it's impossible to see this as anything other than political persecution by a government that has a vendetta against a private citizen in order to scare people out of doing what she did, and as a way of getting back at her, because I think Justin Trudeau, who is a very vindictive person, make no mistake, this is not the kind of person that he presents himself on camera. He is a very malicious and vindictive person, and he has decided that he wants to completely ruin this woman and for everything that she did in the Freedom Convoy. Now, what happened is they put out a Canada-wide warrant for her. Mm-hmm. That alone is reserved for active, dangerous people, people who are mass murderers or serial killers or active shooters or whatever.
Yeah,
that's the only time you do that. And they did this on a woman that A, was not trying to hide. They knew exactly where she was. B, was just going about her business, and they could have kept her in Medicine Hat.
Yep. And
they could have kept her in the prison there. No. They had to fly her to Ottawa on purpose.
Yep.
And had to put her in front of most likely a liberal-friendly judge that would probably and that's why I was I think that the outcome is more than likely going to be that he's going to extend it.
Yeah.
Like, the government has political prisoners in Canada, and Canadians should really, really be concerned about this, because the idea that our government is acting in faith flies in the face of this kind of stuff. The treatment that they're giving her is horrible. This is a grandmother. This is not a rich woman either, and they are going after her in such a vindictive way. It reminds me of what they did with Pastor Arthur Pawlowski here in Calgary. Yep. They wanted to make an example of him, and they're trying to make an example of Tamara Leach. This shows you the kind of person that is in charge of our country.
Yep.
And it's really bad.
Mm-hmm. And it gets worse.
It gets worse.
So, whilst Trudeau had COVID-19 again, his government revealed the vaccinated accounted for 93% of COVID deaths in Canada, 50% of which were quadruple jabbed. Despite allegedly being triple vaxxed, the Prime Minister of Canada recently tested positive for COVID-19 for a second time. It looks like he was lucky to survive it. Because according to his own government, the fully vaccinated now account for 93% of all COVID-19 deaths across Canada, and 50% of the most recent deaths have been amongst Canadians who have been given 4 doses. This is from just
Isn't that crazy?
Days ago. Yes.
The stats of that are staggering.
Yeah, percentage of COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths by vaccination status in Canada from the 6th of June to the 12th of June. So this is for a 1-week period. So this is, of course, from the Government of Canada. So unvaccinated in green, vaccinated in red. Cases, I would say that's about 95% of cases are amongst the vaccinated. Hospitalizations, 90% are amongst the vaccinated. Deaths, 93% amongst the vaccinated. So they produce...
Which is the opposite of what we were told.
Yes. They produce a daily COVID-19 epidemiology update in which they sporadically provide new data on COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. As and when they feel like it, the following table is taken from their 8th of July update found here and shows the number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths by vaccination status up to June 20th, 2022.
Okay, so look at these numbers.
Yes.
And obviously it looks like the unvaccinated, 10,000 deaths, clearly looks like the majority of people dying are unvaccinated.
But
here's the important part. And here's the next paragraph. We'll gotta give you the full picture, because this is the sleight of hand that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, me and Stephen and I.
Oh, we went through over and over again.
You and I went through that Alberta brochure.
Yes.
That they send out to everyone, and of course the stats that they gave in there were so egregiously nonsensical, but they were saying 99 or whatever crazy amount of the deaths or whatever are. So here's what they say. Unfortunately, the Government of Canada is attempting to deceive the public by providing a tally of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths that stretches all the way back to December 14th, 2020. By doing this, they're able to include a huge wave that occurred in January 2021 when just 0.3% of the population of Canada was considered fully vaccinated. This is what's called lying with the statistics.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the spike basically was from... You can see that it starts around November, because this would be about the start of November, and spikes. This is January 17th when they're collecting it, and they've probably started their data collection around here. So if you start your collection around here, and the majority of the population isn't vaccinated until right here, then all of this, which very few people were vaccinated, would be in that category. And so it's just lying with statistics.
It's also, the other thing that's important to remember is that, can you go down a little bit? Go down to the chart that they have on COVID deaths. They have a little bit lower down.
Yeah.
This is something that we talked about, but we also need to remember. No, keep going down. Keep going. The thing says COVID-19 deaths. Keep going. Cases, hospitalizations. There you go. Deaths. Okay. If you look here in this chart, you can see that it shows you the deaths by in the little chart. You'll notice that the vast majority of the deaths, 485, were in the what's called vaccinated, as in the first dose. And then you have double vaccinated, goes down, then it comes back up with triple, and then back up more for quadruple. The majority of the deaths are in the people who got the initial dose, because there's a phenomenon where a massive amount of the massive impact of the vaccine happens within the first 30 days. So a lot of people die within the first 30 days of having their first vaccine dose, but then they're categorized as unvaccinated. Because remember, they don't count it as you're vaccinated until 2 weeks after you've gotten it. So that first wave that you talked about, Stephen, very likely a lot of those deaths, even though they're called unvaccinated deaths, may very well have been vaccinated deaths.
Yep.
So it's numbers like this that should really concern us, because remember, the government of Canada has really recently said that they expect that if you need to get a vaccine booster every 9 months from now until
the end of time.
No, not from now until you die, pretty much. Yep. And so this is leading to what we're seeing now.
Yes,
which
but the
is
next
another
story
big
will
story.
lead into from CTV.
Yeah.
Deaths with unknown causes, now Alberta's top killer from the province. So Alberta's reporting an unprecedented increase in ill-defined and unknown causes of death in 2021. Category is leading the way over dementia, which has been the top spot since 2016, and COVID-19, which began adding to the death tally in the province in a big way in 2020. In 2021, ill-defined and unknown causes of death snagged the first spot, with 3,362, up from 1,464 in 2020 and 522 the year before that, according to statistics from the government of Alberta. The unknown causes of death category only began appearing on the list in 2019. There is no record of it ranking before then, dating back to 2001. Quote, I think it's probably multifactorial, so there's probably many things playing into that, says Dr. Daniel Gregson, an associate professor at the Cummings School of Medicine at the University of Calgary, specializing in infectious diseases and microbiology.
Good, my giant sack of money is here.
Yeah.
I'll just put that in the bank.
Gregson believes those factors include lack of resources to determine the cause of death in certain cases, to low access to healthcare service, and post-COVID. We have this impression that surviving COVID and that's the end of it. And that's not necessarily true, he told CTV News. Gregson points to a large study out of the U.S. that found people who had COVID-19 are at higher risk of heart disease, stroke, pulmonary embolisms, and death compared to those who haven't been infected. The risk is even higher for those who end up at the hospital, the ICU with COVID. We do not expect that there will be deaths that aren't directly related to COVID, but indirectly related to COVID to occur after the diagnosis in patients after the first month of infection. One would expect that for some of those patients are going to survive the COVID and then die at home from other complications. And he keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah, it keeps going on, of course. But what is the one thing that he's not in any way even alluding to as a potential cause of deaths?
Maybe this mainstream media reports on sudden adult death syndrome ignore COVID jab correlation. All the diseases and conditions now being blamed on everything from cholesterol to mysterious atmospheric chemicals are known side effects of the COVID jabs. The elephant in the room is so gigantic you can't even get around it anymore. So this is from Dr. Joseph Mercola. In recent weeks, media outlets around the world have started highlighting a medical phenomenon called sudden adult death syndrome, or SADS, in what appears to be a clear effort to obscure the reality of COVID jab deaths. SAD on steroids, indeed. Underlying factors for SADS include undiagnosed myocarditis, inflammatory conditions, and other conditions that cause irregularities in the electrical system of the heart, thereby triggering cardiac arrest. While SADS has been known to occur previously, what is new is the prevalence of this previously rare event. In Australia, the Melbourne Baker Heart and Diabetes Institute is setting up a new SADS registry to gain more information about the phenomenon. Data compiled by the IOC show 1,101 sudden deaths in athletes under age 35 between 1966 and 2004, giving us an average annual rate of 29 across all sports. Meanwhile, between March 2021 and March 2022 alone, a single year, at least 769 athletes have suffered cardiac arrest, collapse, and or have died on the field worldwide. Among European Union, FIFA, Athletes' sudden death increased by 420% in 2021. Historically, about 5 soccer players have died while playing the game each year. Between January and mid-November in 2021, 21 FIFA players suffered sudden death.
21. So just for put that in a little perspective, like we kind of talked about this before. So the average death rate between 1966 and 2004 was 29 per year total across all sports. In just 1 year, one sports leagues, FIFA, had 21 players die on the field with who knows what. Who knows what it possibly could be. 21. That means like 8 short of the entire world from 1 year. It's like we've all seen the videos of athletes dropping dead, like out of nowhere, totally unexpectedly. Like this is like the biggest gaslight I've ever seen. Like this is like the second you show this to people who've like studied this and learned this, immediately they're like, "Oh, that's the vax."
Yep.
Like it's so obvious. There's
it reminds me of that whole whistleblower thing with Project Veritas, and they were talking about nurses and doctors that were working for, I believe it was HHS, Health and Homeland Security, and they caught them on secret camera. It was like, oh, I bet that guy's here with myocarditis, and it's like, yeah, he's probably here from the vax, and it's like, well, but we can't say that because we'd get in trouble if they heard us talking about this. It's like, yeah, but we both know it's from the vax, right? And they're like, yeah, it's totally from the vax.
And I've talked to so many nurses, and personally, nurses who like they all know. They all know exactly what's going on. You talk to paramedics. They all know what's going on. People are coming in because of vax injuries. You talk to funeral home, like the people who do the preparation of the bodies. There's like widespread acknowledgement. They know what's going on. This is the biggest open secret in humanity. Like, what was the numbers given by CTV? I'm just going back. That's in 2021. I'm just trying to see here.
They said that
1,500, wasn't it?
No, 1,500 was from 2020. 3,362 is 2021.
Yeah.
So it's doubled since 2020. More than doubled.
So the total death count of Alberta was of COVID was like around 3,000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've already like matched that with like sudden adult death syndrome, which is basically a fancy word for a euphemism for vaccine death. So these, like, imagine that. 3,000 people died of COVID. Probably less than that, I think, because that's a total from the beginning of the pandemic. But let's say, for sake of argument, 3,000 people died of COVID, supposedly. That's you're assuming that all those people died directly of COVID, but like how many people died in the hospital and all that. But you've already matched that with vaccine deaths.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that the vaccines are safer than getting COVID? Like, you can tell everybody's in on it because you're not allowed to say the obvious thing.
Yeah, indeed. And just like that in this story. So from the Desert Review, Ray Liotta died in his sleep, absolutely not from the vaccines.
it's like he died in the sleep, not from the vaccine. It's like, whoa, okay.
So
buddy.
Ray Liotta, lovable gangster from the movie Goodfellas, who also played Shoeless Joe Jackson in Fields of Dreams, has died while filming a picture in the Dominican Republic. His fiancée found him dead in his hotel room. Ray died in his sleep, another case of sudden adult death syndrome, the newly coined medical condition that baffles Australian physicians. One thing is sure, it had nothing to do with the COVID-19 vaccines, according to PolitiFact fact-checker Ciara O'Rourke. And Ciara is more seasoned fact-checker than any of these physicians. After all, she graduated from Western Washington University with a degree in French and journalism. She has contributed to such publications as the New York Times, The Atlantic, the Seattle Met, and now she applies her talents to the mystery of Ray Liotta.
Wait, hold on. So this is like her credibility is that she graduated from Western with a degree in French and journalism.
Yeah,
that's her credibility. She's not even a doctor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Well, and then she wrote a piece for PolitiFact saying no, Ray Liotta did not die from the COVID-19 vaccine. She states Ray Liotta's cause of death is known but not yet public, according to the actor's publicist. It has nothing to do with COVID-19 or the vaccines. Always scientific and professional in her journalism, she carefully chooses her words. Claims that Liotta died of the vaccine are also baseless. We rate these tweets pants on fire.
So this is what I love about the story. It's like, imagine if Steven, I run into you one day and I'm like, hey buddy, how's your weekend? It's like, oh good. I went out of town. I was like, oh, what'd you go out of town for? I just went out of town. Nothing illegal happened. It's like, oh. Well, okay, good. I didn't think anything illegal was happening.
Yeah, what parking?
Now I'm not so sure. Do I need to be concerned? Like, no, it was fine. Nothing happened. It's like
everything was totally above board.
Above board. I mean, this kind of adamant, defense, it shows how much people are not. You're not allowed to question the vaccines at all. It's not. You're not even allowed to even mention it.
Yeah.
And I think that somebody shared this picture on Facebook, and I think it perfectly illustrates how completely on board you have to be. If you're anybody in public, you have to be on board with this. Show the picture, Steve. No, not the picture. There you go.
So Sudden invented. Oh yes, sorry, I just have to put it back.
I noticed. Yeah. But so this is the title of the game. It basically says sudden invented syndrome, and of course, the things about it says that.
So it's a presenter. Why are people dropping like flies? Sudden adult death syndrome. Possible causes: genetic disorder, playing sports, heartache, going to sleep, poor health, excellent health, climate change, pandemic PTSD.
Climate change.
And all the other ones from Pfizer, Moderna, the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, the WHO, the EMA, the NYT, NPR, CNN, MSNBC, factcheck.org, and the BBC say anything but the shots.
Anything but the shots. It can't be the shots.
Yeah, anything.
It's basically we don't talk about Bruno, but with the vaccine injuries.
Yes,
that's basically what it is.
Well, even this page. So this is a website called lifestyleinquirer.net, and it has this medical files from this doctor in the Philippines. Increase in sudden adult deaths baffles experts. 2 weeks ago, the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners sounded the alarm about the increase in sudden deaths, which they labeled as SADS. This prompted them to develop the country's first SADS registry to find out how serious the problem is, what's causing it, and how it could be prevented. They didn't attribute it to the anti-COVID vaccination, but a few COVID observers noted that it's difficult to disregard it as a possible cause. The phenomenon was described as a, quote, mysterious syndrome that has left Australian doctors searching for answers, end quote.
I wonder what good, yeah.
That's literally how they term it. According to an official statement from the Royal College of Doctors, SADS usually occurs in apparently healthy adults under 40 years of age where no definite cause could be established even after autopsy or postmortem. So,
it's the problem is that what they're doing in all of these medical organizations and all these political places and all that, they're basically being told, right up beginning, they're like, oh yeah, you can look into the causes of whatever, is causing this, but here's the big rule that you all have to follow. Your conclusion cannot be that the shots are causing it. Yeah. You're basically being told beforehand what you're not looking. And in that sense, it's so egregious what they're doing. They're trying to they're trying to cover up what is actually happening. Yeah.
This is a quote from that article. The CDC-PH experts believe that it may possibly result from the vaccination. This is attributed to the spike proteins generated with vaccination, which may damage the lining of arteries all over the body. Again, we don't want to be accused of fear-mongering, but the public has a right to know that such possibilities, though said to be rare, actually exist and may lead to serious disabilities or deaths in a small number of unfortunate vaccine recipients. Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember, when doctors like Michael Yeadon, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Robert Malone, were sounding the alarm, saying that they had massive worries that these vaccinations could lead to mass deaths.
Yes.
Remember how they were saying that? And that we didn't know the full extent of how much this could damage people long term. Yeah, I feel like we're seeing the first fruits of this thing, and it's only going to get worse. Because remember, not only did they already commit this, and who knows how many people, how many millions of people worldwide are dying from this, just from the first 2 shots that they received, but now they're going to ramp up and try to get people to get these things over and over and over. And we already know the more of these you get, the more you destroy your immune, the more damage they're going to do to you. The amount of death that they're going to unleash on the world is frightening.
Yep.
This is a mass genocide happening on Earth, and they're trying to cover it up by coming up with a new acronym for this thing, claiming that they're baffled, when in reality, all throughout the pandemic, they weren't even, they were trying to completely hide and obfuscate the real damage of these things and trying to pretend like there weren't even damages to them at all.
Yep.
It's insane to me. It's insane. This is the state of our world, that they're basically practicing mass genocide in front of your eyes, and they're telling you, don't believe your lying eyes.
Yep.
That's the craziness.
Oh,
about this whole thing.
there's no reason. It's not because of vaccinations. You just have to accept that random deaths went up by 150% last year.
Oh yeah.
It's what? Why should we not ask questions about that? Because you can't. Because if you do ask questions, then you're a conspiracy theorist, and you are a member of a fringe minority. But all I said was this seems suspicious. Yes, because you said it seems suspicious, and the government says that it's perfectly acceptable, then you are a conspirator, and you will be charged with conspiracy to commit mischief, and you will go to jail forever. Go to the Canadian gulag in the syrup mine.
Off you go with the maple syrup. The thing is, our government, remember, our government, don't forget this. Justin Trudeau, he not only are they happy to lie to your face about what the protest did, the Freedom Convoy was the most peaceful protest ever in Canadian history.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, our Canadian government lied to your face. The media lied to your face.
Yeah.
Told you these were dangerous. These were people who were raping. These are people who were causing insurrection. They lied to your face.
Yeah.
And then they lied to your face about for the vaccines, and they couldn't drop the vaccines or travel mandates. This is a government who has declared war on you and who cares nothing about the truth, and who has absolutely no fear of any sort of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And they will cheat, lie, and kill in order to get what they want.
Yep.
This is why we're no longer living we're living in a country that, with a government that has made it clear that they will not play by the rules. They don't respect Canadian values. Yeah. They're trying, your prime minister is trying not only to destroy your country, but he is trying to murder you. It's what was it on? There was a really funny scene on how, one of my favorite ones, where there's a guy called the Captain, and they're trying to wonder why is he so intimidated? We can't figure it out. And then Marshall figures it out. He takes a piece of cardboard and his face, and he highlights the bottom of his face. It's oh look, his just the bottom of his face is really happy. He's smiling. He's happy. And also the top of his face, and he puts it down, and you see the top of his face trying to murder you. Basically, one side of his face, it looks like he watched dead. The bottom of his face looks like he's smiling. That's Justin Trudeau. He's happy, everything's good, trying to murder you. That's what I think about Justin Trudeau. This is a smiling con artist who tries to pretend like he cares about people, but underneath, he is a vile, vindictive, murderous,
bigot.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the most dangerous man in North America, and Canadians have a right to be rightly concerned about him. Did you hear what he did in the Stampede this weekend?
Oh, wasn't that just yesterday?
Yeah.
Like he
It was
secretly he didn't announce it until like 5 minutes before, and then he
On
showed
purpose?
up at the event, and
Yep.
then still protesters showed up, and I was like, wow, you
Yep.
guys mobilized fast.
Yeah, they're fast. But the media tried to spin it as he was mobbed by by admiring fans, like drooling over how like much they loved like Trudeau, and I was like, oh, give me a break. They staged like an actual photo op in the Stampede stands, but they had to remove everybody from the background because they knew he'd probably get booed and like heckled and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we live like the most hated prime minister in Canada, still willing to play a con artist when he comes to Calgary, just to pretend like people here love him. I'm like, you announce a big public event, you see how many people show up that love you. You'll be tarred and feathered, sir.
Yeah.
Tarred and feathered out of the city.
Tarred and feathered. So that's where we're going to end today's show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you are following us on our various social media platforms, like Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Parler, like, follow, subscribe, comment, let us know. Following us on our video platforms such as YouTube, BitChute, and I guess I'll include YouTube because we do fairly common streams on YouTube. So like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you share these videos with your friends so that other people are just as informed as we are, because that's why this channel exists.
Oh, you forgot Rumble. Naughty boy.
Fine. It's listed above my head. Just read it,
gotcha.
people. Read it.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, if you're following us on our podcast platforms, make sure to download and share. So, here at the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we always like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd? Have a great night, everybody. We will see you on Thursday for our regularly scheduled live stream. So we will see you all then. And until then, as always, God bless.
Good night, everybody.